Hello, friends. It's Monday, and I think it's October 26th, and I'm here at the Camano Hermitage overlooking beautiful Port Susan Bay, just off of Camano Island. A few bars of a song I'd like to sing before we read our whispers for today. Turn it up a little louder. Do not dry the ocean of my love. Do not dry the ocean of my love with the fires of my desire, with the fires of my restlessness. For thee I pine, for thee I weep, I'll cry no more, thou mine evermore. For thee I pine, for thee I weep, I'll cry no more, thou mine evermore. For thee I find behind the fringe of my mind. For thee I find behind the fringe of my mind. Need not leave me, oh Lord. Do not leave me, Lord. Do not dry the ocean of my love. Do not dry the ocean of my love with the fires of my desires, with the fires of my restlessness. So today's reading from Whispers from Eternity is a very, very short one. It's number 157. Keep my spiritual eye open forever. Interestingly, it's a variation on the very same reading I did last Thursday, but much shorter. O spiritual eye, once opened, remain always before me, that I may avoid every pitfall in my path and be led to the highway that leads to thy palace of peace. Give me answers to every problem. Isn't that interesting? Give me answers to every problem. I mentioned, I think last Thursday, a few little practical things in respect to the point between the eyebrows, the seat of enlightenment and spiritual awakening and intuition and so forth. But it's interesting that in this prayer demand, Paramahansa Yogananda, the author, connects getting answers to awakening, opening the spiritual eye. Now, the phrase opening the spiritual eye is both metaphorical as well as actual. In its actual form, one sees the spiritual eye, not just light, behind closed eyes, deep in meditation and stillness with an open devotional heart. There will appear to the meditator behind closed eyes at about this point various impressions of light, and I've even seen pastel colors, just no paint store could ever match them. But what I'm talking about and what the term spiritual eye refers to is something very specific, something seen by people, not even necessarily overtly spiritual people, under certain circumstances, not necessarily even meditation. Nonetheless, it's a circular form, kind of a yellow golden outer ring with a deep blue or indigo inner ring, and at the very center, when seen perfectly, a 5-pointed star. Now, I'm not going to go into the esoteric meaning of those concentric circles right now, but that would be the form. But when we say awakening the spiritual eye, the metaphorical form or the energetic aspect is that as we meditate and as we are taught to focus here, or even as we practice focusing here during a day's activities, as I mentioned last Thursday, we begin to have insight it just sort of comes to us. We suddenly know things. Intuition. Intuition is the fruit of concentration. Now, that concentration can be on a problem. You can be an inventor, you can be a composer, you can be a doctor or anything. And if you focus deeply, studies on creativity show that if you focus deeply on the issue with a certain amount of training and skill, let's just say, a knack for it, and then you relax the mind, perhaps go to sleep, go for a run, take a shower, just rest. Oftentimes, the answer will come to you. Well, meditation is the premier activity because unlike focusing on problems or in your work, and there's so many other things going on in your mind and in your body and all around you, but meditation is focused concentration. And the great author of the clinical description of the awakening of the soul, Patanjali, in his famous Yoga Sutras, speaks a great deal of the need for concentration as the prerequisite to the awakening of the occult centers, the awakening of the soul's knowledge. Paramahansa Yogananda described intuition as the soul's power to know God. Well, if you can know God, there's nothing less than God, so you can know anything, actually. So it's one way of simply saying that intuition is our sixth sense. Intuition gives us access to knowledge that doesn't come merely by reason or going to school or hard work or hard work's always involved because that's part of the process of attuning ourselves to a particular subject. We've got to focus on it. Again, concentration, you see. Concentration is a huge issue in our society today. And it's no surprise that there's not that much intuition. Another facet of intuition is the feeling of intuition. Whereas intuition often comes more or less in the brain when it appears as a thought or an image or something like that as a solution to our problems. Intuition also appears in the heart. There's two kinds of intuition, just like there's two kinds of people, male and female. And although this has nothing to do with one's body, we're talking about sort of streams of consciousness. And when pure consciousness, they say at the beginning of creation, bifurcated into duality, into opposites, reason and feeling were among the most fundamental of those opposites. And so sometimes we get feelings about people. We might get ideas about things. So intuition, born of deep concentration in any field, but certainly in meditation, which is pure concentration, no outward activities happening, internalizing the mind upon the mind, if you will. So it's pure consciousness. And therefore, it's far more effective in one's entire life, not just in one's work or relationship or health and so forth. Meditation is the premier tool to develop intuition. Now, whether that comes to you as feeling or whether that comes to you as ideas and thoughts, inspirations inform how to do things and so on, depends on you and your own temperament and so forth. But a life of an intuitive person is innately creative. You don't have to be an Einstein. Your creativity could come in small things unseen by anybody. How to organize your closet, how to do any number of things. But that intuition is, well, there's so many ways to describe it. It's knowing, it's gnosis, it's certitude, it's confidence. And although we have to learn by practice which things we might think were intuition were false, nonetheless, and this isn't a course on that right now. We do teach courses on that. But nonetheless, as you develop your intuition and it proves itself on the cold light of day in daily life, then it comes with certain characteristics, a kind of confidence in your life, a confidence in your perceptions of people or things. One great saintly person his name Rajasi Janakananda, could solve problems in seconds that people in his high-end business world of CEOs and corporations and so forth would send committees out and they'd study things. He just had this ability to know when it came to business matters, particularly. So how it comes is different for everybody. But to have a life of intuition is to have a life of grace that flows into you. To realize that and to seek intuition as a form of grace is, of course, the highest purpose for intuition. It's fine to want to be intuitive and creative in your work or life, but really it's like having an internet connection. You have this connection with the Akashic record, is one of the terms used down through the ages, with the sphere of all that is. And you draw from it these ideas, these perceptions pertinent to you. Einstein probably didn't get much poetry, and Beethoven probably didn't get much science, but you live more in that realm. And it's a very advanced realm. It's a very refined realm, but it is also a stepping stone to knowing God. Intuition is the soul's power to know God. So as the practical suggestion I made last week, focus your mind's attention, not necessarily your eyes, but your mind's awareness during the day at the point between the eyebrows. Practice this for a couple of weeks. It takes a while to get into it. And just see if it doesn't change your perception of reality. Okay? Bless you. And tomorrow you'll get to see Padma again. Okay, here we go.